This video is going to have a look at the different ways that animals can communicate with each other. It's going to have a look at why it's important for them to communicate with each other and the different ways that they do that. This section of the video then is going to have a look at why animals need to communicate. There are 5 main reasons that you need to know for the exam. Reason number 1 is to warn of predator attacks. So if a predator comes along, it means that they can tell their mates to run away. Reason number 2 is to communicate feelings and communicate their mood. This helps to prevent any unnecessary fighting. The third reason is for any child, any young, they can tell the parents that they're hungry and get food. Number 4 is to allow predators to stalk their prey, so if they find something they can coordinate their attacks. And finally, number 5 is so they can group themselves together. If they're all in a pack together, then it means that they're a lot safer. So the next thing we're going to look at then is the ways of communicating, and one of the key ones is sound. Birds are a great example for this. They can use sound to tell people to stay away from their turf. They can use it to mate, to have a mating call, and then they can also say if there's a predator around and tell people to stay away. Dolphins are a good example of this. So for example, they can use low frequency sound to communicate with other dolphins over a long distance. And the third example of sound is grasshoppers. The male grasshoppers can rub their hind legs together against their wing cases, and this makes a really high pitched sound that attracts female grasshoppers for a mating call. The second main way of communicating is by using chemicals. Now, this can be as simple as a dog marking its territory by peeing on a lamppost, or it could be slightly more complicated. So for example, moths, the female moths release pheromones, and these chemicals can be sensed a long distance away by the male moths. Now this is used for a mating call. The third way of communication then is visual signals, and one of the examples of that is the honeybee. If they find food, they will go back to the hive and do something called a waggle dance, and that will tell people where the food is. Another example of visual signals is how mammals can communicate through their body posture and their body movement. So an example of this is it can be used to threaten other people. Example being chimps. If they feel as though they need to threaten someone, what they'll do is they'll stand on their hind legs and raise their arms. The opposite of this is also true. So for example, if an animal feels threatened and feels that it can't defend itself, it will admit defeat, and for example like a dog, it can lie on its back. This final section of the video then is going to have a look at 2 ethologists, so Fossey and Goodall, and they both did similar experiments that had a look at both mountain gorillas and chimpanzees, and they had a look at the social behaviour in these apes. So what they both did is they spent some time getting close to the animals, close to the apes. They would be near to them, near enough that they wouldn't disturb them, and they would observe them, record the type of behaviours they showed. So they found out that the animals like to stay in groups, and the reason for this was they could search for food together, which means they would get more. They would protect each other, they had more chance of surviving, so strength in numbers. They would have social ranks, so they'd have someone that was at the top. There would be occasional fighting to try and get to that top, but in general most of them would know their place. And finally they would groom each other, so they'd be cleaner, and it brought them together, brought them closer as a group.